Greetings everybody, this is TimeRider with a little Saturday morning restoration action. You know, I don't know if there's any British car more iconic, more connected to the British identity than the Rolls-Royce. Established in 1904, the company has a storied history, and in the end, it's a subsidiary of BMW. In addition to luxury automobiles, Rolls also produced aircraft engines and offered power to such notable aircraft as the Supermarine Spitfire, the Hawker Hurricane, the Avro Lancaster Bomber, and the de Havilland Mosquito. The Rolls-Royce Merlin was also used to upgrade the power of the previously underpowered North American P-51 Mustang used by the United States Army Air Force. Matchbox introduced their variant in 1967, converting it to Superfast in 1970. The 1 through 75 version was always a deep metallic red. If I had to guess, I'd say it's intended to be a representation of Regal Red, an actual color offered by Rolls-Royce at the time. As the car drifted into the Superfast era, Fred the paint guy got a little sloppy, and there are variations in the value of the red, some even looking slightly like a dark pink. It was discontinued in 1973. There was a brief re-release in 77 and 78, and that was gold. While doing research, I found out that people did some really interesting things to this trusted chassis. I thought I'd show you a couple of pictures before I get into this restoration, so stick around. I really like this casting, and it's one that I've wanted to do for a long time. It has an opening trunk. The post is really short there, so I'm probably just going to have to drill through it, and I'll just leave the screw the way it is because it'll be inside the trunk anyway. It's held on with one post, and then like a tab on the front that goes through the casting to hold it together. The Silver Shadow was produced by Rolls from 65 to 76, and then they made the Silver Shadow 2 for a few more years. They made just over 30,000 of them. Interiors, cream, pretty basic stuff. Windows held in by kind of another rolled over thing. I'm not going to try to take the trunk off. I'm afraid if I do that I'll break something, so I'm just going to strip it and paint it with the trunk deck on it. You see the wheels are kind of busted here a little bit. I have some spares. I've done a few castings where I wound up with some center wheels, so I'm sure I can replace the broken ones with stuff I have laying around. I would take the wheels off because I'm going to, strip the casting and replace a bunch of the wheels. So getting the glass out's pretty simple. You don't have to spin the drill very fast to do it. I know a lot of people freak out because, oh man, you're holding it in your hand. Well, yeah, but I'm really also not spinning the drill very quick either, and that drill bit, it's not going to break with what I'm doing. The front grille was held on with like some itty-bitty little mushroomed over posts that had to be dealt with. That's my tack light. I love that thing. It's a cordless grinder, but it doesn't go quite as fast as my Black & Decker, so it kind of depends on what I'm doing. But once I ground them off and lifted it over, there's like a tab in there or a post that kind of holds it in place, and apart it came. Hey, get this. The Silver Shadow used transmissions sourced from General Motors. Turbo Hydromatic 400s mostly. For those of you motorheads out there who know what that is. I know what it is, so. The Turbo Hydromatic 350 was a lot more popular, but these had 400s. So let's give it a shake for luck and get the paint off. And of course, once we get it out of the stripper and get it washed up really good, it's time to do some casting prep. A little bit of goo left there from the stripper, so I always keep some Q-tips handy to get in the corner of fender wells and other things where sometimes the stripper didn't get all the way out. But, you know, wire brush. Let's get it nice and shiny. You can't prep too much, unfortunately. You can see there's some, I don't know, liver spots, whatever you want to call it, on the roof there. That means that, you know, painting clear directly on the metal probably not going to be probable on this casting, which is fine. I'm cleaning up the chassis here. I just paint these with a rattle can, semi-gloss black. I used to shoot it through my airbrush, but it's just, I do them like 3 or 4 chassis at a time sometimes. And here's that grill piece. It had a lot of that chalky corrosion on it. So I soaked it for a few minutes in Crud Cutter and cleaned it with the wire brush. Moving on the casting, of course, to, you know, 4/0 steel wool. Again, I think you can still see there's some kind of staining on the roof that isn't coming off, but I'm going to put a base coat on it anyway, so it's not really going to matter. It's a really nice casting. And then I follow that up with some mothers and get it as highly polished as I can. George Best, Muhammad Ali, Flip Wilson, and David Jansen all own Silver Shadows. Clean it up as best I can. I will take it to the sink and all that one more time before I put paint on it and clean it with some mineral spirits to get all the residue off of it. But I always like to get it, you know, nice and shiny and give it a look-see. This car is so iconic that a marketing survey in 1987 showed that Coca-Cola was the only more recognized brand than Rolls-Royce. That's pretty cool when you think about it. Nice casting. Ready for paint. I'm sorry. It isn't. I still have to drill it out. Duh. And as I suspected, there isn't a lot of purchase here, so, you know, I just drilled pretty much right through into the trunk. And there's my Anderson oiler, courtesy of TG Wraps in Rogers, Minnesota. We'll tap out that hole. And I gotta put it back together sometime, so I need that button screw. And if you look, I'll show you the inside of the trunk. It just, a little bit of it is sticking through. It's not very much. So those of you that follow me know that I've painted with the Tamiya Clears before, and that's what I'm using here. And just from experience, I know that the red that it provides is not deep enough. Don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful color. So what I did here is I tinted my base coat with red in the hopes that I would get, you know, a darker red. And then once the base coat had cleared, I started layering on Tamiya Clear Red. And I think it did come off a little darker than what is normal. So, you know, because, you know, what's underneath the paint is oftentimes more important than the paint, you know, what it's going to come through. Anyway, I'm babbling. The center hubs I soaked in brake fluid and took all of the old chrome off because it was really, you know, crappy looking. And then I'm using my chrome pen, or at least the ink from it, to make these center hubs chrome again. And once everything was dried and cured and it came time to put it all back together, you know, I've talked about this Bondix that I use, and I really like it for this kind of thing because it's instantaneous. I would never use it to create a joint that was going to be under stress. But if all I'm going to do is hold something in place, This is so much superior, far superior over epoxy, because it's done. And, I'm going to put a windshield in and, a little bit of Bondix and it's done. And the nice thing is I have taken windshields out that I put in with Bondix, and it's really easy to get them out without breaking them. So yeah, you take the little light and it cures it instantaneously, and you're ready to put the thing together. Interior got scrubbed. The suspension I didn't do anything with because it was still pretty straight. Put that little tab in the front and get that button screw in it. There you go. And now Lee figures, hey, it's ready for the table, right? And here was what I wound up with. And I had showed this a couple of times because there's a few things about it that bother me. One, if you look at the hood, you can see that there's blemishes in the paint. And one of my subscribers, God love him, said, well, Lee, if you can only see it with a microscope, it's not a blemish. Well, I know it's there. It's a blemish. And there was also some blems on the roof. And as one of my subscribers put it, the color is too cherry-like. And he's absolutely right. It's not the color I want. It's not the paint finish I want. So it went back into the stripper. So I had two issues that I wanted to deal with, the finish and the color. This time around, I used a black Duplicolor primer. And then I tinted the base coat, which is just Tamiya silver. I tinted it with black paint because I wanted to make a dark silver. I also did a little bit of research. Paul over at Fat Guy Productions in beautiful Las Vegas. He did one of these and he added clear smoke to his clear red. So I decided to do that too. You hear me and Paul and a lot of other guys harp about the importance of a tack coat, so I'll try to explain it as best I can. As I understand it, the reason you want to put a tack coat is if you try to lay more paint on it immediately, the paint is still soft, but the carrier has evaporated, so when you bombard it with new paint, it makes the surface rough, and then it looks like my ex-wife's thighs. And you'll see it if you watch modelers closely. There are modelers that they probably try to go too fast or go too thick, and that's how their finishes all look. So you can see the addition of the smoke with the darker primer, or I'm sorry, darker base coat and darker primer underneath that, I guess, too. I am getting a darker end result here, which is exactly what I was looking for. I believe I did this in 4 coats. A tack coat, a couple of mediums. Then I laid on a fairly thick wet coat and coated the whole thing with X22. That's such a beautiful color. I have a number 69, which is the convertible version of this car. And I've been trying to source a windshield forever. And Paul over at Fat Guy, he was helping me out with it, but I know he's got a lot of things going on. And so I have this car, and it's literally it's 90% done, and I can put it together. But I don't have a windshield for it. And the worst part is the car was just a a hot mess. I mean, it was metal blue with orange interior and orange tinted windshield, and it was one of those Fred the paint guy was sick this morning, and that's what was on the floor of his car on the way to work. I don't know where they come up with some of these color combinations. This red I can live with, although to me Rolls-Royce is black or silver or, a deep rich brown. Doesn't that look nice? I think that it's not right on the mark for me, and you'll see that when it's on the final reveal, but doggone, it's close. So now we'll do another quick assembly. I had actually re-chromed the wheels too. I wasn't very happy, and this time around I had put a screw in it. I had to get the glue off of the ceiling of the interior. You can see the big silver mark there. Pop in that interior. Pop in the suspension piece. Whole thing goes back together with a button screw. So there you have it. The Matchbox number 24C Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow. I used my chrome pen on the grill. I don't usually like to do that, but just cleaning it up, it didn't look very good next to the high chrome of the wheels, so I decided to chrome it. The red it's still not as dark as the original, but it sure is in the range, and it's a beautiful car. I love the finish on this time around. Some people ask me why I'll do things twice like that. Well, because good enough just isn't good enough. Anyway, stick around for the bench. This is TimeRider, and I will leave the light on for you. Hey, thanks for sticking around for this episode of The Bench. Hey, I got this. I'm going to step away from diecast for just a second. A really good friend of mine, who's actually a subscriber here, gave me this clock about 20 years ago. And he found it cleaning out or closing old houses for banks. And the base, as you can see, is really, really tarnished and it's corroded. And I've always wanted to do something about it, but I've never really had the stuff around until I started doing diecast cars. So I threw it on my bench the other day and figured I was going to polish it. And I had no idea what I was going to find. Incidentally, that's a brass brush that I'm using there. I wasn't sure if it was plated or if it was solid brass, but I had like contingency plans of what I was going to do with it irrespective of that. So yeah, I'm using this brass brush to just go around and get the corrosion off of it. And then following that, this is Mother's polish and steel wool. And what I'm trying to do is get the remnants of the urethane that was used to coat the brass off. And as you can see, it's already 100 times better just after the little bit that I did to it. This took me like maybe a half an hour. Almost made me wish I would have done it 20 years ago. But yeah, it's really starting to look good. And I'll be proud to put it in my house. You can see here there's a little crack in the brass right down here, and I'm really not going to worry about that. After I got done with the steel wool and the polish, what I did is I started using sandpapers. I needed to get the surface of the brass the same all the way around, so I had to get the rest of whatever they used to the urethane or whatever. I started at about 1500 grit, worked up to 12,000 grit, and then this is 4/0 steel wool one more time. And then what I finally wound up doing is using mother's polish. I took this piece of styrene, and what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of cleaning the crud out of these places that are kind of hard to get at prior to polishing it. My polishing wheel will get in there, but it has a tendency to just push everything down. So I had to clean it out to clean out that waistline and that top line. And here's my tack light with my mother's. And I also, after I was done cleaning this off, I used a polishing rag. But you can see this clock turned out just beautiful. It's back in my living room now. I sent it to a clock guy a while back and had it fixed, had the spring fixed and stuff, so it is a true anniversary clock again. Thanks for letting me step away from cars. I'll get back to them now. Well, I'll tell you, on the die-cast front, too, you guys are going to be getting just a boatload of videos from me over the next couple of weeks because I had a lot going on, and I don't know, it all went really well. The Thames Ford tow truck, done. Just got to put the video together. The Lomas ambulance, also done. I just got to put the video together. This Corvette that George Hodges sent me, also done. Just got to put the video together. And then last but not least, I finally got the casting for the next 3 Blind Mice build. It's this Johnny Lightning Bug Bomb. It's supposed to have 2 hyperbolic blown motors in it. Doesn't have any. That's fine because I don't need them. So stay tuned for that. I'm not going to show you what I'm doing because we never do. So you're just going to have to wait until it's done next month. That's all I got. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'll get one of these restoration videos out probably early in the week. Comment below if you choose, share if you want, thumb up, thumb down, don't matter to me, just be nice. Everybody have a great weekend.